All right, so today's class on our unit Biological Diversity, we are looking at topic 5, which is when plans change. Now topic 5 will be covered over about 3 classes just because it is a lot of detail in this topic. So we'll start by looking at structure of DNA, and then we'll be looking at cell division as well, which will be covered in the next 2 classes. All right, so
Hold on, why is there more than one of me?
we're looking at DNA, the secret of life. So DNA, it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. So the D in deoxy is for the D in DNA, and for nucleic is the N in the DNA, and then A is the acid. So the DNA is the genetic material. This is what is passed on from generation to generation. And this is the molecule that stores the genetic material for heritable traits, and it also directs the structure and functions of cells. So DNA is what controls how the cells will behave, the structure of the cells, and so on. So we're also going to be talking about chromosomes, and these are the tightly packed strands of DNA that are visible under a light microscope during cell division. So if we look at this image down here, we have a cell, and the cell has a nucleus here. Within the nucleus, we see these chromosomes. They're X-shaped. So here we're looking at an individual chromosome. So like I said, chromosomes are tightly packed strands of DNA. So this whole chromosome is tightly packed DNA. So now we're taking a closer look at DNA. And then the DNA will contain genes. So certain sections or certain segments of the DNA have genes. All right, so again, these chromosomes, they're found in the cell's nucleus, which is here, and they are composed of strands of DNA. And here is another image of DNA. It's like a coiled structure, and we'll take a look at that next. So like we saw in this diagram here, this one here, DNA, basically it looks like a coiled ladder. So basically if you take a ladder and you kind of twist it, that's what the structure of DNA looks like. So the sides of the ladder, they're made up of alternating subunits of sugars and phosphates. And then the rungs of the ladder where you're stepping, those are made up of pairs of nitrogen bases. So the bases you need to know are adenine, shown as capital A, thymine is capital T, guanine is capital G, and cytosine is capital C. And I'll show you guys the figure in just a second. But the adenine, the A, will always pair up with the thymine by forming chemical bonds, and the guanine will always pair up with the cytosine by chemical bonds. And one way you can remember that is we have the linear, like the straight line letters, like the A and the T, they go together, and then we have the curved letters, the G and the C, they will bond together. Okay, so here is an image. So again, it looks like that twisted or coiled ladder. This blue on the edge or on the outer sides of the ladder, that is made up of the phosphate and sugar. So here it's labeled as the sugar and the phosphate backbone. And then we had the 4 nucleotides that we talked about, or the 4 nitrogen bases that we talked about. The adenine and the thymine pair up together, and then the guanine and the cytosine will pair up together like this. And then when we talk about a nucleotide, one nucleotide is made up of a phosphate, a sugar, and a nitrogen base, which I'll show you in this next slide. All right, so here is the phosphate and the sugar, which makes up the sides. Okay, and then the rungs of the ladder here are those base pairs, or those nitrogen bases, the A and the T, the G and the C. And then if we were talking about one nucleotide shown here in this rectangle, it is made up of one phosphate, one sugar, and then one nitrogen base. In this case, they're showing cytosine. And notice here again in this diagram that the adenine will pair with thymine, shown here as well, the T and the A and the T, and then the guanine and the cytosine will always pair together. So guanine, cytosine, here we have cytosine and guanine. Okay, so those four nitrogen bases that we talked about, A, T, G, and C. So the arrangement of A, T, G, and C will form a code, and that code is read by cells. And just in comparison, like we have 26 letters in the alphabet, we can rearrange the letters in the alphabet to form millions of words. Same thing with these four nitrogen bases. They can be in different lengths to form a code, which will be read and will make up a gene. Okay, so that code is basically like a blueprint that controls the production of proteins in the cell. These proteins make up much of the structure of the cells and the tissues in plants and animals. And these proteins, different kinds of proteins, will then control how a cell is formed and how it functions. And then there are genes. Those are sections of the DNA molecule that codes for a specific protein. So not all of the DNA that we have will code for a specific protein. Only certain sections of the DNA that is a gene that codes for a protein.
All cells require some form of instructions to be able to function properly. They need guidelines, rules, codes for making materials in the cell, and that code is DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. D for the name of the sugar, N and A for nucleic acid. DNA contains the information that determines inherited characteristics. It has the code for making proteins. DNA is found in the nucleus of eukaryotic cells and in the cytosol of prokaryotes. If we take a closer look at the chromatin inside the nucleus, we can see the structure of the DNA. The DNA has repeating subunits, and those subunits are called monomers, or nucleotides specifically. The nucleotide has three main parts: a phosphate group, a sugar, and a nitrogen base. In DNA, the name of the sugar is deoxyribose, which is part of DNA's name, and there are 4 nitrogen bases in DNA. The bases are thymine, adenine, cytosine, and guanine. 2 of the bases are purines, which have a 2-ring structure, and 2 bases are pyrimidines, which have a 1-ring structure. Adenine and guanine are purines. Cytosine and thymine are pyrimidines. I remember the pyrimidines are the bases with a Y in their name, just like pyrimidine has a Y in its name. A purine always pairs with a pyrimidine, and the slanted shape of the DNA molecule causes it to form a spiral or helix. Because DNA is double-stranded, we use the phrase double helix to describe its structure. There are 4 scientists who are credited with discovering the shape of DNA, and they are Watson, Crick, Wilkins, and Franklin. All of them received a Nobel Prize for their work, except for Rosalind Franklin. She died before the prize was given. Each of these scientists played a role in piecing together the structure of DNA. they learned that along the sides of the molecule was a backbone made of alternating sugar and phosphate molecules. On the inside, like the rungs of a ladder, are the nitrogen bases. Adenine and thymine form hydrogen bonds together. Cytosine and guanine form hydrogen bonds together. To help me remember which bases link together, I think of writing the letters. A and T both use straight lines. C and G use curved lines. I also know that A and T have 2 hydrogen bonds, but C and G have 3 hydrogen bonds by saying AT2, CG3. Silly things like this are actually a great memory tool. Strands of DNA are said to be complementary to one another because A will always be with T and C will always be with G, based on the number of hydrogen bonds that they want to make. You can predict the complementary strand if you know the other strand. So let's use all of that knowledge about DNA and see if we can identify the parts of this blank DNA molecule. The easiest to label are the deoxyribose sugars and phosphates. They make up the outside of the molecule. Deoxyribose is a pentagon shape, and the phosphate is just a small molecule in between. Next, we need to remember a rhyme, AT2CG3. So the nucleotides with 2 hydrogen bonds must be A and T, and the ones with 3 are C and G. To tell which one is which, you need to know that pyrimidines have 1 ring and purines have 2. So cytosine and thymine are the pyrimidines, so they're the 1-ring bases. Adenine and guanine are the 2-ringed bases. And now you have a labeled DNA molecule. Thanks for watching this episode of Teacher's Pet. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter at SciencePet.
All right, so just continuing looking at chromosomes then. So just to recap here, we have a cell. And within this cell, we have the nucleus. The nucleus is what contains the genetic material. So here, those X-shaped structures are the chromosomes, which are tightly packed strands of DNA. So here we can see this chromosome is unraveling, and this is all DNA. And as we get closer to it, we can see the double helix structure of the DNA. And then here it's also showing that this part of this DNA actually codes for a gene. Okay, the rest of the DNA is non-coding. It doesn't code for a gene. So again, it's tightly coiled strands of DNA. That's what chromosomes are. In humans, our body cells, we have 46 chromosomes. And these chromosomes are found in 23 pairs. So 23 plus 23, which makes up 46. Just in comparison, dogs have 78 chromosomes, so 39 pairs.
So dogs have more chromosomes than us.
All right, so we were just comparing chromosomes in different organisms. So humans, again, there's 46 chromosomes. That means there's 23 pairs. 23 plus 23 gives 46. Dogs have 78. 39 plus 39, that gives us 78. Tomatoes have 24. 12 and 12 gives us 24. Cats have 38 chromosomes, so again 19 pairs, 19 plus 19 to give us the 38. Okay, and the reason we look at it that way is because one copy of each chromosome is coming from each parent. Okay, so from the male parent and the female parent. And then it's important that each cell in the body has a complete set of chromosomes. And we will be talking further about the 2 forms of cell division. The first form is called mitosis, and this type of cell division is where cells will divide into identical copies. And then we will also talk about meiosis, which is the formation of the gametes, which were the egg cells and the sperm cells. All right, but we are going to stop today here where we discussed DNA and the structure of DNA. So homework today is the study.com model of DNA and then the worksheet on the DNA structure.